October 2017, 11. 1. Choose any two of the following passages from the Quran, and A. Briefly describe the main themes in each passage. Winking sad smiley 4. B. Briefly explain the importance of these themes in a Muslim's life today. 4. ANS, A. Themes. 1. 96:15. These 5 verses of Surah Iqra al-Alaq are the first ever revelation that the Prophet received in the cave Hira in Ramadan 610 AD. The remaining 6 verses were revealed later when the Prophet began to offer regular prayer in the precincts of the Kaaba. The command of read in the name of your Lord, in the first verse means the Prophet was already familiar with one supreme God. The word alaq was traditionally translated as a clot of congealed blood. In modern times it refers to the primary state of embryo. The next verses mention God's power to create humans from a humble origin and mature them to acquire worldly knowledge by using the pen. The ability to read and write shaped human intellectual evolution over the ages. The last verse points to God's will to grant humans spiritual knowledge through divine revelation as and when it was required for humans. 2. 2:30-37. These verses describe the story of the purpose of creation of humankind and its superiority over other creatures due to the gift of knowledge. God told his angels about appointing his vicegerent Khalifa on the earth. He also told them the reason of the elevated status of Adam, who was granted the knowledge of the names of all things. Angels were then commanded by God to prostrate before Adam. All obeyed God except Iblis, who, driven by arrogance, disobeyed God. This proves that Iblis was not an angel but a jinn. Adam and his wife Eve were sent to paradise for a comfortable living as well as testing their free will. Their Iblis, now titled Satan, successfully persuaded them to disobey God, as mentioned in another surah. Then began Satan to whisper suggestions to them. 7:20, Al-Raf, repentance of both was, however, accepted by God, who asked them to shift to the earth for a new phase of life. Muslims are thus instructed to beware of Satan in order to strengthen their relation with God. 3. 6:75-79. The 4 verses were revealed during late Makkan period when polytheism was targeted in detail by the Quran. They describe the story of formal awarding of prophethood of Prophet Ibrahim. Living in Mesopotamia, he was surrounded by a community of idolatrism, including his father. Being a man chosen by God, he was against idolatry and worshipping objects of nature. He smashed idols manufactured by his father and argued with him about the foolish practice of his community. After this, he started his spiritual journey by looking closely at various heavenly bodies in his quest of identifying his true Lord. He observed the stars, the moon, and the sun, each one brighter than the other. He realized all these were under the laws of nature, and so, could not be God. Finally, the truth was dawned on his heart as he identified God as the light of the heavens and the earth. 2400 hours 35, Ulna, therefore, he declared his belief in Tawhid and rejection of shirk. B. Importance of themes. 1. 96:15. These verses teach Muslims to acknowledge God's favors of creating humans from a low origin and then making them distinct from all other creatures by way of gaining knowledge. The gift of knowledge is so supreme that God commanded the angels to bow down before Adam because he was made superior due to the knowledge granted to him by God. The Quran states, "And he taught Adam the names of all things." 2:31-34, Al-Baqarah, according to many ahadith, pen was among the first ever creations of God. That is why Surah 68, Al-Kalam, begins with God vowing the pen. The Quran, at another place, endorses the superiority of humans in these words, "We have indeed created man in the best of molds," 95:4, Al-Tin. They need to remember that God alone blessed them in multiple ways, and so, they need to worship and be grateful to him. The verses highlight the importance of acquiring knowledge in order to keep their superior status. 2. 2:30-37. These verses tell Muslims about God's wisdom behind creating Adam as first human as well as first prophet who received divine guidance. Thus began the history of humankind and the institute of prophethood. Humans, because of God's bounty of knowledge, began to dominate the world in all domains of life. However, due to their free will, they may go astray under the satanic temptations. Therefore, God made arrangements for their guidance to the right path. Muslims need to acknowledge the purpose of their creation, their supreme status, as well as Satan's enmity towards them. All humans are born pure, but it's Satan who can misguide them. Muslims, therefore, should be grateful to God and be alert about their perpetual enemy, Satan. They should also remember that if they commit sins but express repentance on it, they can hope forgiveness by God. This is testified by this Hadith Qudsi, "Truly my mercy overcomes my wrath." 3:6:75-79. The verses invite Muslims to ponder on God's unique powers and worthlessness of idols and other false deities. They help Muslims understand human vulnerability of committing shirk under the satanic influence. Committing shirk is a great human weakness and an unpardonable sin. The Quran categorically declares, God does not forgive that partners should be set up with him, but he forgives anything else to whom he pleases. 448, Al-Nisa, for this reason God sent 124,000 prophetic messengers to keep humans from this grave sin. These verses remove any doubts and hypocrisy from the hearts of the believers to make them genuine servants of God. They provide guidance to Muslims about how to live according to divine message. Its recitation, therefore, has a purifying impact on the hearts of Muslims. The verses also tell about God's will and wisdom of granting prophethood to his chosen men in a variety of ways. 2a. Write about the function of the Quran and Sunnah as the two primary sources of Islamic law. 10b. Why do you think the Quran and Sunnah are not the only sources of law, and are supplemented by ijma and qiyas? 4. The Quran and Sunnah Hadith are collectively called the primary sources asl of Islamic legal thinking. Quran is the basis of all thought and action and legal thinking in Islam. Usually, it provides fundamental rules of lawmaking, and Sunnah Hadith provides the details of these rules. Both Quran and Hadith support the use of Sunnah in legal thinking. For example, Quran says, "And obey God and obey the Messenger." 459, Al-Nisa. This verse commands Muslims to use both Quran and Sunnah in legal thinking. Quran further says, "So, take what the Messenger gives you, and refrain from what he prohibits you." 59:7, Al-Hashr. Similarly, the Prophet instructed, "Remember this, Prophet Sunnah, and report it to those whom you have left behind." The Prophet himself highlighted the importance of hadiths by saying, "Indeed I have been given the book, and something like it along with it." Abu Daud. A similar hadith of Musnad Ahmed declares, "I have been given the Quran and something similar to it." So, the hadiths are intimately linked with the Quran. As a rule, Quran and Sunnah cannot contradict each other. Instead, Sunnah supports the Quran either by fully interpreting the Quranic teachings or by supplementing them. For example, the Quran commands observance of the pillars of Islam, and establish regular prayer and pay the charity tax, 243, Al-Baqarah. However, the Quran is silent about how much of one's wealth, nisab, is to be paid as the charity tax, zakat, since it simply commands Muslims to pay zakat and enlists those entitled to receive it. Alms are for the poor and the needy, and those employed to collect it, for those whose hearts have been reconciled, for those in bondage and in debt, in the way of God, and for the wayfarer. 9 hours 60 minutes, Al-Tawbah. In the light of Sunnah, details of the nisab or the rate of charity tax were worked out, e.g. 2.5% of the wealth equivalent to 87.3 grams, 7.5 tolas, of gold or 611.1 grams, 52.5 tolas, of silver. For example, he said, no charity tax is due on property amounting to less than 5 ukiah of silver, and no charity tax is due on fewer than 5 camels, and there is no charity tax on fewer than 5 wask of dates or grains. 1 wask equals 425 pounds 135 kilogram. 1 ukiah equals 1/4 pound 128 grams. By using these units, Muslim legal experts calculated the nisab. Referring to the clever practice of evading the zakat, he instructed, neither the property of different people should be gathered together nor should the joint property be split for fear of zakat. Comes or 1/5 th of the income from the mines is calculated on the basis of this hadith. On treasures extracted from the earth, 1/5 is due as zakat. The Quran, similarly, forbids the practice of charging riba, usury interest, but gives no details about the nature of usury riba, e.g., God has permitted trade and forbidden riba, 2:275, Al-Baqarah. The Prophet summed up the definition and modes of riba by saying, the bartering of gold for gold is usury riba, except if it is from hand to hand and equal in amount and quality, and wheat grain for wheat grain is usury riba except if it is hand to hand and equal in amount and quality. Many clever traders used to earn unfair profit by giving inferior quality commodities, dates, grains etc., in exchange for superior quality commodities. This was one of the earliest forms of usury riba that is based on exploiting the poor or the weak. In modern banking, the bank offers a small percentage of profit to the depositors, but charges a heavy markup from those who borrow a loan from it. The Quran condemns drinking in this verse, O you who believe. Intoxicants and gambling are an abomination of Satan's handiwork, so shun them. 5 hours 90 minutes, Al-Ma'idah. It, however, mentions no punishment for drinking. The Prophet prescribed a punishment of whipping 40 stripes for drinking. According to a hadith reported by Hazrat Anas, the Prophet lashed a drunkard with a stick and shoes and Hazrat Abu Bakr whipped him 40 times. Quran discusses the fundamentals of intentional murder by referring to the qisas punishment for bloodshed, and diyar, or blood money. It commands, O you who believe, the law of equality, qisas, is prescribed to you in cases of murder, the free for the free, but if any remission is made by the brother of the slain, then grant any reasonable demand, 2:178, Al-Baqarah. It does not mention any details about the blood money. A hadith of the Prophet elaborates this: if anyone kills a believer intentionally, the killer shall be handed over to the heirs of the deceased. They are free to grant him death sentence, qisas, or claim the blood money, diyar. The blood money in such a case will be 30 she-camels of 3 years each, 30 she-camels of 4 years each and 40 she-camels of 5 years each. In addition to it, they may agree on any cash amount. The Quran also provides guidance about the laws of inheritance. It says, God directs you concerning your children, to the male a portion to that of 2 females. 4:11, Al-Nisa, a fundamental rule in this regard is not mentioned in the Quran, but a hadith Sahih Muslim commands, a Muslim is not entitled to inherit from a non-Muslim, and a non-Muslim is not entitled to inherit from a Muslim. B. The Quran and Sunnah are the primary sources of Islamic legislation. The Prophet, however, permitted the usage ma and qiyas, too, because he very well knew that after his demise new challenges and issues would face his ummah. Both primary sources mention events, instructions, and parables that were familiar to the Muslims living in that era. The Prophet keeping in mind there would be new and alien vocabulary as a result of scientific discoveries and inventions that he knew could not be included in the primary sources. He, therefore, commanded, and strived to develop an understanding of the religion. For this the secondary sources are essential in order to conform Islamic teachings to all times. For example, if a Muslim astronaut explores the space, how he would be offering salat or keeping the fast, are some of the latest issues for which Muslim scholars need to make laws for guiding ordinary Muslims. 3a. The Prophet exercised a lot of self-restraint and patience while preaching Islam in Mecca. Write about at least 3 events from this period of time that show these virtues. 10b. Giving examples, say how in your opinion Muslims can show self-restraint and patience in their everyday lives. 4a. The Prophet faced a lot of hostility when he was in Mecca. A little after his first revelation, he received the divine command, and expound openly by what you have been commanded. 15 hours 94 minutes, Al-Hijjah, he then started public preaching, and with that the Quraysh changed their attitude in a hostile way. They subjected him to persecutions and ridicule, but the Prophet did not retaliate or show anger towards them. Instead, he would always pray to God for granting him strength and guiding his insulters to the right path. He never lost hope in the success of his mission and always waited for divine guidance. Once, he was offering prayer in the Haram, when Abu Jahl said to other chiefs, "I wish someone could fetch the bowels of a camel with all the filthy mass and fling it over Muhammad." Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt quickly brought the garbage and flung it over the neck of the Prophet. Other pagans danced in glee, jostling and pushing one another. Someone informed Fatima, who was just 5 or 6 by then. She ran up to the harem, removed the filth and rebuked Uqba and other insulters. The Prophet remained calm and composed during the whole episode, and did not utter a single word of revenge or complaint. He was given various insulting titles such as a magician, poet, and a man possessed by spirits. Whenever he addressed an audience in public, Abu Lahab would simultaneously interrupt his speech. Once, when the Prophet visited the fair of Dulmajaz and addressed the crowd by saying, "There is no God but Allah," Abu Jahl quickly threw dust over him and said, "Do not be misled, he wants you to give up worshipping Lat and Uzza." He was called Al-Abtar, man without progeny, on the death of his sons from Khadijah. The Prophet acted patiently and remained steadfast till he was consoled by God through Surah 108, "Al-Kawthar, we indeed granted you the abundance." He found it difficult to spread Islam in Mecca at the end of the social boycott, in 619 AD. Seeing that spread of Islam had almost come to a halt, he visited Taif, a small town near Mecca, in 620 AD. He tried to preach to Bani Tarkif of Taif, but these people proved even more hostile and pelted him with stones so much that he began to bleed. At this moment the Angel of Mountains offered him the destruction of his enemies. The Prophet patiently replied that he hoped their offspring might accept Islam. Thus he showed his unshaken faith in God. The Quran admires such degree of patience of the Prophet as, "And we sent you not but as mercy for all." 21:107, Al-Anbiya. B. Muslims can follow these examples of patience in a variety of ways. Life has become busier with the passage of time, and most of the people are in a hurry to reach their workplace. In such circumstances, there are traffic jams at busy roads. A genuine Muslim will wait patiently instead of forcing others to move by unnecessarily honking. If some tragedy befalls their family, or they incur a loss in their business, they need to observe self-restraint and reassure themselves the Quranic promise, "Verily there is ease with hardship." 94:5, Al-Inshirah. Similarly, if due to financial constraints, a Muslim fails to satisfy the needs or demands of his children, he should teach them to wait and not lose hope in God's help. He should tell them that disappointment and frustration are undesirable in the sight of God and His Messenger, as these feelings tend to weaken a Muslim's faith. 4a. Give a detailed account of the Prophet's journey from Mecca to Medina in 622:10. b. How is the migration of the Prophet like the migration of some Muslims now? Give reasons for your answer. 4. A. The Quraysh felt angered and frustrated over the failure of all their attempts to stop the growth of Islam. Mut'im bin Adi, who had provided tribal protection to the Prophet recently, passed away soon after the second pledge of Al-Aqaba. Thus, finding the Prophet vulnerable again, they decided to kill the Prophet. They held a general consultative meeting in Dar al-Nadwa, the council house of the Quraysh. Various suggestions were put forward. Abu Jahl proposed that one man from each tribe should be selected and then the entire band should simultaneously put him to sword, so that all the tribes might jointly be responsible for his blood. His proposal was immediately accepted, and preparations were made. At sunset the house of the Prophet was surrounded. The Arabs thought it unchivalrous to enter the female quarters. Accordingly, these men stayed outside, waiting for the Prophet to come out. The Prophet had been divinely informed of this nefarious plan. "Remember how the unbelievers plotted against you, to keep you in bonds, or slay you or get you out of your home. They plot and God also plans, but the best of planners is God." 8:30, Al-Anfal. He instructed Hazrat Ali to sleep in his bed as a decoy, and return all the belongings of the Quraysh. At night he left for Hazrat Abu Bakr's house. He recited the verses of Surah Yasin, "And we put a barrier before them, and a barrier behind them, and we covered them up, so they cannot see." 36:9. Thus miraculously unseen by the aspirant assassins, he and Hazrat Abu Bakr left for a cave in Mount Thor, 5 miles south of Makkah city. Hazrat Abu Bakr's son, Abdullah, and his freed slave, Amir bin Fuhaira, followed them with a flock of sheep to cover up their tracks. Hazrat Abu Bakr entered the cave to clean it and to plug the holes through which some poisonous insect could harm them. Abdullah bin Abu Bakr returned with his sister Asma the next night. They brought some food for them and informed them about the Makkans who had started searching for both the men. They had announced a reward of 100 camels for capturing the Prophet. The Prophet and Hazrat Abu Bakr spent 3 days and nights, while the Makkans searched for them. While searching them, a band of Makkans reached almost so close to them that their discovery seemed inevitable. Hazrat Abu Bakr became worried, but the Holy Prophet assured him that God was with them. The Quran mentions this as, "Do not be aggrieved, for verily God is with us." 940, October. The band of 5 or 6 Makkans surveyed the cave and decided to go back. The Prophet and Hazrat Abu Bakr then went to the mouth of the cave. To their surprise, they saw an acacia tree which was not there before. Where there was a gap, it was covered by a spiderweb, and a dove had made a nest and was sitting close by. This divine intervention had fooled the Makkans. The same night Hazrat Abu Bakr's children again brought some food and a Bedouin guide, Abdullah bin Urakit. After 3 days both left the cave with Abdullah bin Urakit on 2 camels for Yathrib via a zigzag route in order to throw off any pursuers. Hazrat Abu Bakr gave his best camel Kaswa to the Prophet. Shortly afterwards, a bounty hunter, Suraka bin Malik, tracked them and began to pursue both. He, however, had to abandon the pursuit, as his horse refused to move forward by the command of Allah. They had a brief stopover in the tent of an old woman Marbad. On Monday, 8th Rabi al-Awwal, September 622 AD, they arrived at Quba at a short distance from Yathrib. Here they stayed for 4 days and were joined by Hazrat Ali. At Quba, the Holy Prophet built a mosque and prayed in it. On Friday he left for Yathrib. On his way, he offered the first Friday prayer in the valley of Ranuna, of Banu Salim along with the accompanying Muslims. The people of Medina had been eagerly waiting for their new leader and the most honored guest. Chanting his praise, they greeted him on Monday to his new home. Children celebrated his arrival by singing songs of gratitude to God. Every Medinian wanted to earn the honor of hosting the Prophet, but he left it to his camel Kaswa to make the choice. It stopped at a plot owned by 2 orphan brothers. Meanwhile, Hazrat Abu Ayyub Ansari, who lived nearby, had quickly taken the baggage to his house. The Prophet shifted to Hazrat Abu Ayyub's house to stay there till the Mosque of the Prophet, Masjid Nabawi, and his own house had been built in the plot. B. Migration is a living tradition of Islam. Muslims today feel seriously threatened in many countries. They feel insecure due to some anti-Muslim policies in the name of Islamophobia. Some countries, like Sri Lanka, have made laws against observance of hijab by Muslim women. Under such circumstances, migration of Muslims from their native countries is similar to the migration of the Prophet. The Quran in this regard says, "God's earth is spacious enough." 39-10, Al-Zumar. There are racist movements in other countries where Muslims feel direct threat to their lives, and so, they follow the sunnah of migration of the Prophet. They start a new phase of life in their host countries who treat these Muslims in a kind way as they don't feel uncomfortable with Muslims practicing their religion. Muslims are even allowed to preach Islam in these countries, and thus their migration can be viewed as the Prophet's migration. 5a. Write about lives of the companions Bilal ibn Rabah, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib and Salman al-Farsi. 10. B. In your opinion, what is the significance of the Prophet encouraging the liberation of Bilal and Salman from slavery? 4. Ans. A. Hazrat Bilal. He was an Abyssinian slave of Umayyah bin Khalaf. He converted to Islam in the early Makkan era. He was the second adult Muslim male after Hazrat Abu Bakr. He suffered a lot because of his conversion to Islam. He was severely tortured by his master, who used to tie him and made him lie on the scorching desert sand. He would place a heavy rock on his chest and pressurize him to abandon Islam. Hazrat Bilal, however, remained firm to his faith and always said, "Ahad, Ahad, God is one, God is one." Finally, Hazrat Abu Bakr purchased and set him free. The Prophet, during the journey of Mi'raj, heard someone strolling in paradise. On inquiry, Hazrat Jibreel told him that it was Hazrat Bilal. Bilal was appointed as the first muezzin by the Prophet. He remained muezzin until the caliphate of Hazrat Umar. He also delivered the azan from the roof of the Kaaba in February 629 when the Holy Prophet visited Mecca to perform Umrah. Later, he repeated the same on the conquest of Mecca in 630 AD. Hazrat Bilal also participated in all battles with the Holy Prophet. In the Battle of Badr, he killed Umayyah bin Khalaf, his former master. After the demise of the Holy Prophet, Hazrat Bilal was heartbroken and was always seen in a state of depression. Always feeling sad, he left Medina for Syria where he spent the rest of his life. He died in about 18 AH and was buried in Damascus where Masjid Bilal was built in later years. Hazrat Ja'far bin Abu Talib. He was the third son of Abu Talib and Fatima bint Asad, born about 590 AD. Hazrat Ja'far and his wife, Asma bint Umayyah, were among the early converts. He migrated to Abyssinia in the second batch of emigrants. When Amr bin Al-Ayyaz and Abdullah bin Rabia tried to persuade the Negus to return the Muslims, Ja'far became their spokesman and the first ambassador of Islam. Ja'far briefed the Negus about the age of ignorance and the teachings of Islam. On this, he asked Ja'far to recite something that had been revealed to the Holy Prophet. Ja'far recited Surah 19:16-21 that described the miraculous birth of Jesus Christ to Hazrat Maryam. The Negus and his courtiers were impressed, and he asked the Makkans to leave. They came again and requested him to ask Muslims about their beliefs regarding Jesus Christ. The Negus asked Ja'far the same, and he replied, Jesus is slave of God and his messenger and his spirit and his word. The king was convinced, and allowed Muslims to live in his country. Ja'far and his wife lived there for about 12 years, and 3 sons were born to them, Abdullah, Muhammad, and Orn. Then they migrated to Medina in 628 AD. The Prophet was in Khaybar at that time. Ja'far hurried to Khaybar and joined Muslims after they had conquered the area. The Prophet was cheered up on his arrival. In Medina he was known for his acts of charity. He was among the 3 commanders in the Battle of Mu'tah, and fought valiantly. He lost his 2 arms and was finally martyred. The Prophet felt very sad on this news and gave him the title Tayr and Zul Junahain, the one with 2 wings. According to a hadith unlike others in paradise, Ja'far would fly from place to place with his wings. He was buried in Mu'tah, Jordan. Hazrat Salman al-Farsi. He was a Persian born as Ruzb in 568 AD, a Zoroastrian family in Kazan or Ram-Hormuz, Persia, in a fire-worshipping family. One day on his way in the market, Salman heard the voices of some priests in a church. He developed curiosity about the Christian beliefs of adoring one God. When his father came to know this, he confined Salman to home, but he managed to escape and went to Syria. He learned about Christianity from a bishop, and after his death he visited important Christian scholars. A monk told him about the last messenger of God who would be an Arab. He would only accept a gift hibah, but not charity sadaqah. He joined an Arab caravan to be taken to Arabia, but he was betrayed and sold to various masters. Finally, his Jew master brought him near Medina. He met the Prophet at Quba, and finally embraced Islam in Medina. He was given the titles Abu al-Kitabain, father of the 2 books, Bible and Quran, and Abu Abdullah. He gave the idea of digging the trench before the Battle of Kandak. He was the first person to translate some parts of the Quran into Persian with the permission of the Prophet. Caliph Umar appointed him governor of Al-Madain, but he always lived a simple life. He became a renowned follower of Ali after the demise of the Prophet. He died in 35 AH 656 AD during the last days of Caliph Uthman, and was buried in Al-Madain. B. Hazrat Bilal and Salman al-Farisi were made slaves, but the Prophet treated them like his family members. He followed the Quranic injunction, O humankind, surely the noblest among you in God's sight is the one most pious of you. 49:13, Al-Hujurat. Hazrat Bilal was so dear to him that he remained the only muazzin acceptable to the Prophet till his demise. This shows the racial or social background of a person is no criterion to judge him, but it is his taqwa and devotion to Islam that should be considered. Hazrat Bilal's sufferings in Makkah were rewarded by the Prophet. Similarly, his treatment of Hazrat Salman teaches Muslims to value one's quest for the search of Islam. The Prophet's permission to Hazrat Salman to translate some parts of the Quran into Persian shows the Prophet acknowledged his scholarly skills he had acquired all through his journey of slavery.